morning. Thank you all.
This is a
Thank you for
demonstration
patience.
of Flip for
I was
Mac.
saying to Rachel just a moment ago that we're only as good as the technology allows us to be, so all mutes are now off. It's great to be here. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you to the RAC. I'm really excited to talk about something that I've been passionate about for a lot of years. So I'll begin by just giving you a little bit of background on who I am and what it is that I'm doing. I am, as you heard, Lisa Friedman. I
This
am
is
the
a demonstration of
co-director
Flip for Mac.
at Temple Bethel in Hillsborough, New Jersey. I've been there for 12 years. But I think what's most interesting is how I got there and how this all came to be. I'm a product of the reform movement. I'm a nifty kid. I'm proud to be a nifty kid. I am really thrilled to see it all come full circle and know what could really happen when someone gets so involved in our movement.
This is a demonstration of Flip for Mac.
I went to Urban Mitzvah Corps in the summers between my junior and senior year of high school, and during that time I participated in one of the job sites, which is the Daisy Recreation Program, and it is a camp for young children and young teens with developmental disabilities. And those 3 weeks were life-changing. That was it. I was hooked. I went on to Rutgers, both undergraduate and graduate work in
This is a
education,
demonstration
in special
of Flip
education,
for
in
Mac.
counseling psychology, all knowing that that moment in time was going to lead me to special education and that that was really what it was all about. When I graduated college, I went right into the public schools in New Jersey, and I taught in a public school district for 6 years. And then when I was ready to stay home with my son,
This is a demonstration
I said,
of Flip for Mac.
I think there's more that I can be doing. I think there's more that I can be offering, and that's when I found my way into the world of the synagogue. And that's when I found my way to Temple Bethel. I called the synagogue. There is a joke among the professional staff that are still working there. There's a joke that when they heard me say over the phone when I was interested in inquiring about a job that I had a background and I had experience in special education, the joke goes that one
This
could
is a
see
demonstration
the drool
of
dripping
Flip for
out
Mac.
from the phone lines because they, as many congregations had been, realizing that there were individuals that they weren't serving and there were individuals that could be better served. And so I came into Temple Bethel with the opportunity to be the special needs coordinator. I went on to then run the education programs with my colleague Sarah Glock. And we're really thrilled and proud that our congregation is so serious
This
about
is a
inclusion,
demonstration
so serious
of Flip
about
for Mac.
special education within the religious school, and really just honored that we get the privilege of working with lay people and working with families who really understand what this is all about and why it's so important. So the topic that we're going to dive into today is really a little more narrow than inclusion as a whole. I know for those of you that were on last week, you had the opportunity to learn from Shelley about
This
some
is
of
a
the big picture
demonstration
inclusion
of Flip
ideas.
for Mac.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about parents and the parents that we work with in our synagogues. And so as you can see from this cute little graphic that we really work with a lot of different types of people. And our parents, just like our children, really do find themselves on a continuum. This continuum is one in which
This is a
at one
demonstration
end,
of Flip for
they're
Mac.
supportive advocates. They know what their children's strengths and weaknesses are. They know what the formal disability classifications are. They get it. They know what works for their children. They know what works in the public schools. And they come to us in the synagogue world ready and able to advocate for their children and say, this is what we want. Unfortunately, that's not the norm.
This is
That's
a
not
demonstration
the average
of
parent.
Flip for Mac.
Typically, we find parents that are further along on the other end of the spectrum. At its worst, we have parents who are angry that their children aren't getting or aren't able to get that which everybody else gets. They're uncooperative. They don't even want at times to acknowledge or think that their child has a problem. And even when they do know that their child has a
This
problem
is a demonstration
in school,
of flip for Mac.
they don't view it as a problem because it's not. It's just who their child is. And so they think, well, I'm going to a synagogue, I'm going to a faith organization, of course this is where I'll be supported, of course this is where I'll be embraced. And so they really are in that defensive mode, that defensive posture. And then somewhere along the way, hopefully, we're able
this
to
is a
help
demonstration
them move
of flip
from
for
one end
Mac.
to the other. And that's really our jobs. We're in a service field. We're in a place where it's our job to help parents make that journey from one end of the spectrum to the other. And so, Rachel, we're going to go on to the next one. I think a little background is really helpful because all too often even if we recognize
this is a demonstration
what that
of flip for
continuum
Mac.
could look like, and we all know, we've all had parents on one end or the other or somewhere in between that we've interacted with, and we all know that they're not all the kind of partners that we wish that they could be. I think understanding where they come from and how they get there makes our ability to work with them and our ability to really counsel them that much clearer. Parents
this is a
of children with
demonstration
special
of
needs,
flip for
parents of
Mac.
children with disabilities, they're living a life of battle a lot of the time. They're fighting with insurance agents when their children are small to get the medical coverage they need. They're fighting with the school districts from the time that their children first begin in secular or in public school to get the accommodations and the right kinds of things that they need. They're frustrated, they're angry because they really are
This is a demonstration
in this
of flip
place
for
where
Mac.
they always have to push, fight, battle for what it is that they know is right for their children. And the other piece of where our parents come from is that when a parent has a child and discovers, learns, uncovers that this child has a disability, there's a grieving process. And it's a pretty significant one. It's not that they're grieving for
this is
their
a demonstration
child, but they're
of flip for
grieving for
Mac.
what they thought the idea of what their child could have or should have been was. And so that in and of itself is a process. I love the book called Jewish Education for All, a Jewish Special Needs Resource Guide. It's a fantastic tool. It is from Torah Ora Productions. No, they don't give me any kickbacks. I just happen to really like this resource.
This is a demonstration of flip for Mac.
A quote in there about this grieving process that reads like this. When parents learn that their child has a disability, they begin a journey that was not in the master plan for their family. Parents can become fearful because they do not know where their child will be in 5 or 10 years, or whether their child can achieve any of the things they had dreamed. Faced with emotional turmoil, parents approach professionals warily.
This is a demonstration of flip for Mac.
But that really is a lot of what we see. And I think when we're speaking in terms of education and in terms of the school, when we tell a parent, when we recognize a child who is struggling, when we realize that a child isn't having his or her needs met the way that we traditionally or the way that we typically meet a child's needs in our schools, when we tell a parent that the child
this is a demonstration
it
of flip
throws
for
them
Mac.
back into this grief process all over again. It brings them back to, oh, again, here I go again. Instead of being in a synagogue, being in a safe place, being in a place where they think that they can find safe haven and sanctuary and calm, they feel this moment of, oh, here we go again. And so I really believe strongly that the work that we do,
this is
not
a demonstration
only with parents
of flip
with
for
special
Mac.
needs, but all of the work that we do in the synagogue world is based on building strong relationships. And so we have this opportunity. We have an opportunity from the very moment a family first enters our synagogue to say, let's build this relationship. Let's make sure that we are all on the same page. So that's where
this is a demonstration of
yes
Flip for
comes
Mac.
in. We came up with this title, Shelley and I, a few weeks ago when we were on a conversation. Let's flip, Rachel, to the next slide, if that's okay. When Shelley and I were talking, we had this conversation about saying yes, about the fact that so often families who come to synagogues are told no they can't worship
This is a
there,
demonstration
no, we don't have a place
of Flip
for
for
your
Mac.
child in the school, or they're told maybe a partial yes. What I want to suggest, and what I really have found to be so successful with all of the families that I've had the good fortune of working with, is that when we say yes, absolutely, Jacob can be in this religious school. Now let's talk about how to do it. We've gone great lengths to reducing the parents' anxiety,
this is a demonstration
to bringing that
of Flip for
relationship
Mac.
to a place where we can figure out together what works. When we say no, even when we later say yes, or if we initially say no and then, well, maybe, we've already set that defensive posture back into motion. So what I really advocate for and what I really feel so strongly about is that we begin by saying yes. Yes, of course, you can be a member of this community. Yes, of course,
this is a demonstration
we can
of Flip for
accommodate
Mac.
your family's needs at Shabbat dinner, in the religious school, on a temple committee, in worship services. When we say yes, then when we say, well, in this instance, this is challenging. Help me figure out how we can solve it. We've built trust. We've built it so that the parents aren't sent back into that spiral of frustration. They aren't sent back into
this is a
that
demonstration
place
of Flip for Mac.
Oh, here we go again, but rather they're sent into, either kept really in a place of, we can do this together. And so you can see from the ideas that I've put here on the screen, we lower a parent's defenses so that they will engage in a dialogue with us. Then there will be room to say, what can we do differently? What are we doing well? And what else can we still be doing?
This is a demonstration
and we recognize
of Flip
that
for
they're
Mac.
on a journey. And so going back to my cute slide from earlier with the people on the spectrum, we really honor where our parents are in a way that allows us to say, hey, we realize that this is a journey for you, and let's take this journey together. It's an important one. And as I already mentioned, it builds trust. It really takes us to a place where
this is a demonstration of Flip for Mac.
They believe. This congregation embraces me. This congregation gets it. Or even if this congregation doesn't get it, this congregation wants to get it. This congregation is willing to understand me and to understand my child and to understand my family, because that's really all anyone wants. When families join synagogues, when people join synagogues, it's because they want to belong. It's because they want a community and they want to be a part of the community.
This is a demonstration of Flip for Mac.
Yes, be a part of our community, and then together work and figure out how to make that possible and successful, we really are doing honor and doing a great service to families who otherwise feel so terribly frustrated. So part of what we were going to do today was going to be a conversation about some success stories.
This is a demonstration of Flip for Mac.
Rachel, I'm going to take a quick break here for you to see if there's been any questions or anything that anybody wants to raise or ask about working with parents. Okay. So I want to share a couple of success stories that we've encountered in our synagogue. The first one,
this is a demonstration of Flip for Mac.
The first one is about a boy named David. David was a really interesting story, and David came to us, David's family came to us very early in our program. We've been running a separate special education program within our religious school for 12 years. And when we first started building this program 12 years ago, we had this young man who was about fourth
This
or
is a
fifth grade at the
demonstration
time,
of
and whose
flip-format.
parents said, I'm struggling with the school. His public school, his secular school, is saying he shouldn't learn a foreign language. His learning disability is such that if you try to teach him a foreign language, he will fall apart in public school. And the parents came to us and said, what do we do? This is who we are. This is our heritage. This is who we want our son to be. Of course we want him to learn
This is a
Hebrew.
demonstration of
Help us.
flip-format.
So we went with them. We went to the child study team in the public school. We had some time with them in their IEP meeting, and we spoke to them about figuring out the right course and the right way for David to be successful. And then we built a program in our school that was individualized and that met David's needs where he was. It took the pressure off of an after-school
This is a demonstration
program. We
of
brought him
flip-format.
into our Sunday morning Hebrew program. Our program, called Alternative Hebrew, is literally just that. It is an alternative for those who can't quite manage and can't be successful in an after-school Hebrew program. So on Sunday mornings, he went to a smaller class with a smaller group of children, with a teacher who understands and is trained in working with children with special
This is a demonstration
needs.
of flip-format.
And we met his goals, and we met his parents' goals, and we taught him Hebrew. And of course, David went on to become a bar mitzvah, because that was never in question for us as a congregation. But here's what I have always found to be the most interesting, the most significant part of David's story. When David became a bar mitzvah, of course it was an amazing accomplishment for him. Of course he was proud. Of course his family was proud.
This is a demonstration
of course we
of
heard them
flip-format.
tell the stories of the way that they shared his accomplishment with the child study team in his secular school to show them that yes, he could do this, and yes, this was going to happen for him. And what's interesting for so many different opportunities is that David's journey really only started when he became bar mitzvah. He stayed with us post B'nai Mitzvah.
This is a demonstration
he stayed through
of flip-format.
confirmation. He stayed through all the way through his senior year of high school in our formal education program and in our youth group. He went on to become the president of our youth group. He went on to become active and really committed to NIFTY. And what that all speaks to is meeting our children, meeting our families where they are, building relationships, understanding what they need,
This is a demonstration
what they want,
of flip-format.
and figuring out together how to get them to that place. And so I think that David's story is a really significant one because it's not just did he have a bar mitzvah. It's, of course, he became a bar mitzvah, but that was the launch. That was the launch for the rest of his life as a Jewish adult. And he understood that, and his family understood that. And I
This
think
is a
that
demonstration of
happening
flip-format.
for us as a synagogue so early on in our programs was such a significant moment because it opened our eyes. It helps us to realize as a community that when we meet our children and our adult learners, but when we meet our children where they are in their journey and help bring them along to a greater endpoint or help bring them along to whatever their next goal is, it frees
This
them.
is a
It frees
demonstration
them from
of
the stress.
flip-format.
This is a kid, David was a kid who would have been the typical I hate Hebrew school child. He would have been the typical temper tantrum in the parking lot every single week before school if we hadn't had this offer, this program to offer him. He was never a behavior problem, but I really genuinely believe that if we hadn't been able to meet his needs, that he would have become
This
one,
is a
because that
demonstration of
frustration level
flip-format.
would have been just way too high and more than he could have managed. And I give so many people so much credit for any success. It really does take an entire community to make these things happen for families and for children. The fact that his parents were the ones that said, no way, of course he learns Hebrew, I give them so much credit. The fact that the lay people in our congregation
This is
said,
a demonstration
well, okay,
of
so
flip
then
for
what do
Mac.
we need to do to figure out how to meet David's needs differently is a huge statement. And so it really is about partnership and relationship building and figuring out how we can do all of these different things. And it doesn't take tremendous amount. The fact that we are able to run a smaller program for the children that need it.
This is a demonstration
we're not talking
of
about
flip
a
for Mac.
program, at least for us, that costs crazy amounts of money or requires unusual spaces. We are fortunate. We do have an elevator. We do have a 2-floor school wing, and we are fully accessible. That was never a hurdle that our congregation had to jump over. But there are small steps, and there are so many ways and so many different opportunities to
This
bring
is a demonstration
in families and
of
to
flip for
really
Mac.
give families and children the opportunity to find the success that they're capable of. So I really genuinely believe that it's about this individualization and having these private conversations and these one-on-one interactions where trust is built and relationships are built in such a way that families feel comfortable and the children themselves feel comfortable. So David really has been
This is a
one of my
demonstration
favorite success
of
stories
flip
for
for
a
Mac.
long time. But recently, I have a new favorite, or a second favorite anyway. We are really exceptionally fortunate to have a young lady in our program who is blind. And she, probably more than any of the other children that I've ever had the opportunity to teach and work with, is
This is a demonstration
a
of flip
gift.
for Mac.
She's a gift for me in really understanding what our vision of inclusion as a community is all about. It forces me to do everything with a little different flair than I might have before. It forces me to be thoughtful. She uses Braille as her primary means of communicating and of reading.
This is a demonstration of flip for
And so that
Mac.
takes time. We've built a tremendous relationship on her behalf with the Jewish Braille Institute, and they're amazing in the work that they can do. But we need to be well prepared in advance to make sure that she's successful. And it really goes bigger than that, because it's not just about, can she read the Hebrew school book? Can she read the, can she learn Hebrew?
This is
and
a
by the way,
demonstration
Braille
of
Hebrew
flip for
is one
Mac.
of the coolest things I've ever seen in my entire life. If you've never had the opportunity to interact with Hebrew Braille, it's really spectacular. We're also very fortunate. Our teacher, our tutor for her, learned Hebrew Braille in order to work individually with her to bring her to her bat mitzvah. But again, this is a story that is so much bigger than could
This is a
she learn
demonstration
Hebrew?
of flip
Would
for
she
Mac.
learn Hebrew? Could she be a part of our school programs? We take, she has become bat mitzvah. She is in our high school program now. She is currently in our 9th grade program. And we take our 8th and 9th grade students on an overnight retreat. And we do this with a couple of other synagogues each year. And so it really is a lot of coordinating and a lot of ensuring that it's not just myself who makes
This is a
everything accessible
demonstration
and
of
adapts
flip for Mac.
what we're up to make sure that it is appropriate for a student who doesn't see. But it challenges my colleagues as well. And I remember vividly when we first got to this retreat, a mixer was planned. And of course, teenagers getting together for the first time, you need a mixer. So of course, they need to get together and have an interactive experience. And the mixer was
This
planned
is a
by one of the other
demonstration of
congregations,
flip
and it
for
was
Mac.
one of those mixers where it's find somebody with the blue shirt and stand next to them and tell them your favorite ice cream flavor. Or find somebody whose hair is the same color as yours that you've never met before and talk about your favorite Jewish movie. And so I realized very quickly that this was a completely visual experience.
This is a demonstration of Flip for Mac.
Was at a complete and utter disadvantage. And I'll be honest, I freaked out. I had to walk out of the mix because she didn't need me walking her around and doing this with her. None of the teenagers want their education director doing the program with them. I had to let her and let her peers come to this together. And so I was very frustrated
this is
and
a
very
demonstration
nervous and very
of Flip
stressed
for
out
Mac.
as to how the rest of this weekend would unfold. There was a girl who she's known for years and years and years who did take her arm, who did bring her over to some people, and she did participate in the mixer. But I could see that it was not the experience that I had hoped that it would be for her. And I found myself later that night when the kids had gone off to bed expressing this frustration with my colleagues that this isn't right for her, that we were
this is a
missing the mark and that we were doing this wrong. And I remember so vividly one of my colleagues, one of the other rabbis said, just keep letting it unfold. You've put all the pieces in place. She's going to be fine. Just let it unfold. And so I went to sleep that night frustrated and woke up the next morning coming through our services and getting to lunch. And at lunch, there's a cafeteria, it was a cafeteria-style line. So, of course, somebody had to walk with her to go through to get her food.
This is a demonstration of Flip for Mac.
I was going to be the one that was going to do this. So I went over to her and said, you know, do you want to go get lunch? And we went over together. And as we got up to the line, there was a young man from one of the other synagogues who was in line in front of us. And he took a look at the two of us and smiled and said, go ahead. And while doing that, pat his stomach. He was patting his stomach and said, go ahead. I don't really need to be the first in line. And he smiled, and I smiled.
This is a demonstration
and my
of
student
Flip
leaned
for
over
Mac.
to me and said, what's he talking about? And I smiled back at him, and then I explained to her, well, he just made a self-deprecating comment about himself in reference to his weight, and so he used that as a joke to indicate that he didn't have to hurry up and get to the food so quickly. And she said, oh, okay. And I knew in her voice that she really had absolutely no idea what I was talking about and what this was about. This wasn't her frame of reference. She just didn't know from this. But she is grateful, and she said, okay, it's fine. And it was in that moment that I watched that young man transform. And he looked at me as I explained this to her, and he looked at her, and all of a sudden I was nothing, thank goodness, because that's what we want for our teens. Suddenly I was finally nothing again.
This is a demonstration of Flip for Mac.
And he said, you are so lucky. You never have to judge anyone on their appearance. And she smiled and she said, I know, it's good. And it was just this moment that all of my colleagues had said, just wait, just wait, just wait. And it was that moment, truthfully, the rest of the weekend could have been over. The retreat could have ended right there.
This is a demonstration
that was
of
the
Flip
aha
for Mac.
moment. That was this point of recognition. This young man really understood, really realized what it meant to include someone and what it meant to really make sure that everybody was a part of the conversation. Of course, he then proceeded, she's a beautiful young lady, and he proceeded to follow her around like a little lost puppy dog and walk her from place to place for the next day and a half.
This is a demonstration of Flip for Mac.
Enjoyable to watch. She, by the way, I don't think was interested in the end, but I think that she was really so taken by the fact that he got it, because that is her reality. Her reality of, oh, you know, I'm feeling a little chubby today, and when you look in the mirror, that's not her reality. It just isn't where she is. And so to have somebody come to her reality
This is a demonstration
was so huge
of
and
flip
so
for Mac.
significant. And I think that we wouldn't have these kinds of successes if we weren't open to the different possibilities of what they could be and of what kinds of opportunities we could offer to our families. And so we've had others. We've had other success stories. We've had other students whose needs wouldn't have been met if we did not offer alternatives.
This is a demonstration of flip for Mac.
Have accomplished unbelievable things because we were able to individualize their program and meet their needs and include them. We currently have also in our high school program a young man with autism who is completely accepted, completely included, completely a part of everything that we do in our school and in our congregation. He's never not been there. He's been with us
This
since
is a
kindergarten.
demonstration of flip for Mac.
He's just there, just like the rest of us are just there. And I think that that's what our families are so desperate for. They don't want to be identified as different. They don't want to be singled out. They just want to be there. They just want to participate. They just want to do what everybody else does and blend into the fabric. But I'll be honest, not every story is a success.
This is a demonstration
There
of flip
are
for Mac.
times where we've had bumps in the road. There are definitely times where we've struggled, where we've wondered, is this the right thing to do for the students in our school? Is this the right way for us to be going? It's a process. It's a journey. It's a really cool process and a really fun journey. I like being on it.
This is a demonstration of flip for Mac.
Are fearful. There are a lot of people that are afraid that their school program or their synagogue program could be compromised by embracing inclusion. One of my favorite quotes and one of the best things that I've ever been told is educating children with special needs is just good education. It doesn't take away from the other learners.
This is a demonstration of flip for Mac.
Take anything away from anybody else's education experience when we include. All it does is enhance the opportunity for everyone who's involved. But it's been a bumpy road. It's not always been smooth for us. It's our obligation. It's our Jewish obligation. As you can see with the quote that I put here on the screen, every member of the people of Israel is obligated to study Torah, whether one is
This is a demonstration
rich or
of
poor,
flip for Mac.
physically able or with physical disability. And so if we come to this with a full heart and we come to this with an understanding that it really is everyone's right, everyone's obligation, and everyone's opportunity, then we get to a place where we can take the journey and go along the process. I've made mistakes along
This is
the
a
way.
demonstration
I've had families
of flip
that
for
have
Mac.
been so terribly frustrated with me that I have had to take a step back and wonder if what I'm offering is right for everyone. I've had opportunities where what we were doing was right for a large number of people, but wasn't right for an individual student. I've had situations where I've had a situation where a parent told me that they
This
wouldn't
is a
put their
demonstration
child in
of
that
flip for
class
Mac.
with those children. And we've been there. We've been there in our congregation, and we've persevered through it because we know it's the right thing to do. We know this is who we are as a Jewish people, just like we welcome anyone who wants to be a part of our congregation from any other avenue, so too with disabilities. So too do we say, absolutely, come, be a part
This
of
is
our
a demonstration
community, be a
of
part
flip
of
for
what we
Mac.
have to offer, and offer something back. Because when we take that opportunity to work with one another, learn from one another, we really are all better for it. But there are definitely those days, there are definitely those times where the parents have been frustrated with what we've offered or not offered in the school. We've definitely had times where we missed the mark, where we thought we were doing something
This
that
is a
was right, and we
demonstration
looked
of
back
flip
and
from
we
Mac.
said, you know what? I don't think that's really the way that we want to be doing this. And so we go back to the drawing board and we go back to the conversations and we figure it out again. And by building these relationships with parents over so many years, I really do have the opportunity that we don't have to sit, I don't have to sit in a room with the rest of my professional staff and figure out what's right. We've set ourselves in a place
This
where
is a demonstration
I can call
of flip from Mac.
trusted parents from this community and say, help me figure out what's better for some students who've come after your child. And so this really is an effort together to figure out what is the best idea and what is working for each individual family and each individual child. So, Rachel, I'm going to take another opportunity to ask you if there are any questions. Am I seeing one on my screen?
This is a demonstration of flip from Mac.
Yeah, we have a question or a comment from Jane,
Great.
who says that at Temple Shari Tefillah in New York, she had similar experiences with saying yes, and says that this approach is on track, but that a congregation has to make a dedicated effort from top to bottom, and that saying yes is wonderful, but it doesn't always mean that parents will be happy enough, and that full inclusion has to be achieved in the congregation as a whole, not in every part, but not in every part of every
This is a
program.
demonstration of flip from
Parents'
Mac.
expectations also have got to be realistic. So if you could address this tension between saying yes and
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so true. We in our congregation found that beginning with the school made sense for us. When I started this program, when we started 12 years ago, there were kids that were already in the school that were struggling. That's not to say that there weren't other aspects in our congregation where there were those people that were
This is a
experiencing
demonstration
challenges, but
of
for
flip
us,
from
there were
Mac.
children that were struggling in the school. And so for us to address those needs in an education model made sense. But it is so true, because if our congregation as a whole didn't understand and didn't embrace this idea of inclusion, it would have been just that. It would have been a fix for the child in the school, but then that family, when they show up for Simchat Torah or for
This is a
Shabbat
demonstration
across America
of
dinner
flip
or
from Mac.
whatever it was else that they wanted to do, if inclusion isn't embraced by the congregation as a whole, no question that would still be a frustration, that those needs would still not be met in some other way. And so I agree with that wholeheartedly. And there is a balance. There is a balance between expectation and realistic expectation. My advocating and my suggestion
This is a demonstration
is
of
one
flip
in
from
which
Mac.
we start by lowering the defenses and bring those relationships to a place where we can have those honest conversations. Because it's very true. There are times that there are parents who have very unrealistic expectations for their children, and we, either as school directors or as rabbis or whomever it is in whatever instance, have to say, listen, this isn't working.
This
Here's
is
why
a demonstration
it's not working. This isn't
of
to
flip
mean
from Mac.
you can't be here, but this piece of this puzzle in this place at this time isn't working, and let's figure out how to fix it together. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes a parent will never be satisfied. Sometimes a parent is so deep in the grieving process that no matter what we offer and no matter what we do, it won't be enough. That even though we say we can accommodate your child's needs in the school, or
This
we
is a
offer,
demonstration of flip from Mac.
adaptive options in worship services, or we have, different programs, or whatever it is that a congregation can and will do, there are definitely those times where there will be individuals and there will be parents of children in particular who it just won't be good enough because they just themselves haven't gotten to a place where they themselves are comfortable enough recognizing
This
their
is a
child's
demonstration
gifts
of flip
and their
from Mac.
child's limitations. So if a parent is still pushing for what they thought it should be while living in a moment of this is what it really is, that tension exists for them in such a way that it doesn't matter what we do, they will get in their own way. And so we are in a service profession. It really is our job. This is what we do all the time. We counsel every day. And so to really build those relationships with the families in a way that allows us to be honest with them and say, I can see that you're upset here. I can see that this process is hard for you, or whatever it is, to be able to be open and be honest and say, we see that this isn't working, and help them through that grief process. It's huge. It's huge. But I agree 100% that it really does have to be the community at large. Because until the community at large understands this as a value, not a program, not something that we do as an add-on, not an accommodation that we make for the one person who comes on the one Shabbat a year. That's not what we're talking about. When a congregation understands that inclusion is a value for the congregation as a whole, then there's a place and a space for us to meet all of the different individual needs. So
this is a demonstration of flip-format,
because it really is so true. There really is hopefully a healthy tension, but there really is time when those tensions are more than one or the other side can really manage. And that's part of it too, because I think that happens in the synagogue world in other places. I think that there are times when a parent's unrealistic expectations of their neurotypical child
this is a demonstration of flip-format
is more than some synagogue can handle. And I think that there's times where other opportunities where it doesn't have anything to do with a child or an individual with disabilities, that gets in the way too. And that's the fabric of what it means to be a faith organization and work together.
Thanks, Lisa. And Jane
Absolutely.
Jane helps run Pardes, which is the consortium of Reform Jewish day schools, and she thought that your answer also applied.
This is a demonstration of flip-format,
synagogues, but also to Reform Jewish day schools, a lot of which are housed in synagogues. And that's
excellent. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And Rabbi Lynn Landsberg also had a question and was wondering if and how you work with other congregations in your area, Lisa.
I serve as a resource with other congregations in my area. It's interesting for some of the big cities, for the New York, the Boston, the Chicago, the LA, there seems to be a great deal of opportunity for federations, sometimes as the umbrella organization, but as places to really collaborate and do things together. In Central Jersey, not as much. I'm not fortunate to be a part of my synagogue is not fortunate to be a part of the Metro West Federation that does some unbelievably wonderful things.
This is a demonstration of flip-format.
Really, what we do in our area, we are geographically the only reform game in a pretty big radius. We do some other things, and we have had some conversations with some of the other synagogues local to us, but we really more so serve as a model and have had other congregations from different parts of the state come take a look at what we're up to, learn from us.
This is a demonstration of flip-format.
Pieces of what we're doing and make it fit for their community, which personally I think is huge, because I don't think that our synagogue has all the answers. I think that our synagogue has the answers for our community. I think that we do something really well in our place, but I think that it's so significant when other places are able to say, hey, we want to do something. Let's learn from what's out there.
This is a demonstration of flip-format.
And let's figure out how we can start this and we can do this in our own place. So you can see on this resource page, the first is the book that I mentioned,
this is a demonstration of flip-format.
I read that quote from about parents grieving. The other book that I love a lot from the secular world is called The Essential Conversation, What Parents and Teachers Can Learn from One Another. It's a fantastic gem that really speaks to the teacher-parent relationship, how it can be improved upon, how it goes wrong, and where it can go from there.
This is a demonstration
I really
of Flip for
love
Mac.
that. There are certainly tons and tons of other fantastic resources out there, both for Jewish and for secular education in terms of parent relationships, but also in terms of special education. But I really am thrilled to turn it back over to you, Rachel, to let you talk a little bit about some advocacy.
Thanks. As you guys
This
probably
is a demonstration
know, part of what the RAC
of Flip
does
for
is
Mac.
serve as a resource to congregations and parents and connect you with experts like Lisa and Shelley and webinars like this. But another big portion of what we do is work on change from the top down, from the policy world. So what I want to tell you about today is a piece of legislation called the ABLE Act, a little bit of background, and then some quick actions that you can do that are a little bit quicker than the systemic change in your congregation that we're working at. And of course, passing the legislation
This is a
will take a lot
demonstration
longer than
of
that,
Flip for Mac.
but a quick thing that you can do and that you can share with other people to do that's really important right now. So why is the ABLE Act needed? And then I'll tell you what it does. But first, a little bit of background. So under current law, people with disabilities who have more than $2,000 in assets are ineligible for many essential government benefits, including Medicaid. Families whose child will not go to college can't save money tax-free for future expenses, like
This is a demonstration of Flip for Mac,
which could include, and these costs could include caregivers, medical visits, housing, you know the list. And adults with disabilities also find it more expensive sometimes to work than to be unemployed, since they can't save their earnings without forfeiting these government benefits like health insurance. Our Jewish tradition teaches us you shall not insult the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind. This is one we probably all know from Leviticus.
This is a demonstration
and we talk about
of
a lot
Flip
of
for
different
Mac.
types of stumbling blocks, but the one that I want to draw your attention to today is this barrier in the path to economic self-sufficiency, which is just as important as these ramps in our synagogues, I think. And current law discourages people with disabilities and their families from saving for the future. So what the ABLE Act would do is provide secure funding for disability-related expenses on behalf of people with disabilities. It would create a new subsection within the IRS tax code. And so without
This is a demonstration
into all the weeds,
of Flip for Mac.
Is include tax-free savings for benefits like education, housing, transportation, employment support, health prevention, wellness, assistive technology, all sorts of things, just so the people who might not be headed to college or who need an extra more than $2,000 in their savings account can put away tax-free. And what you can do is take action now. You can head to the RAC's High Impact Action Center at rac.org/alerts.
This is a demonstration of Flip for Mac.
You can either send right as it is or tweak with your own personal story, and urge your member of Congress to co-sponsor the ABLE Act, again, which would encourage and assist individuals and families to save private funds for the purpose of supporting people with disabilities to maintain health, independence, and quality of life. The ABLE Act is probably our most disability-specific action alert on our website right now. But what we also have are two that are
This
very
is a
important.
demonstration of
Our
Flip
first
for
action alert
Mac.
that you'll see if you go to that website is our Medicaid expansion action alert, and that urges your state, if it hasn't already done so, to support the Medicaid expansion. And then right now, if you may have heard that tomorrow is the so-called sequestration, and on the table could be programs that cuts to programs that provide services to the most vulnerable among us, including with people with disabilities. So if you're going to take 3 actions
This is a
right now and go to
demonstration
that website,
of Flip for
I'd
Mac.
also encourage you to take our deficit reduction action. So right now, we'll take some questions, and again, later, if my computer doesn't freeze, if you have any questions, you can visit the RAC's issue page, the URJ's disabilities page, or you can email me or Lisa, and our emails are right there. But I think we will take a question right now from Jane. How is disability defined? Can this mean
This is a demonstration of Flip
The
for
Americans
Mac.
with Disability Act actually defines disability, maybe somewhat broadly, but it's something that inhibits one or more essential daily life actions. So yes, this definitely can include age-related disabilities. If we have any questions, we can take them now, or else we can let you guys go a couple minutes early.
This is a demonstration
thank you, Lisa, and
of
thank you for
Flip4Mac.
everybody that listened in. I hope you got something out of this, and please feel free to always contact either of us if you have any questions or want to be connected with any resources in the future. Have a great afternoon.